Welcome back to part 4 of Vehicle Design course. In this session, we are going to add more details and refine the overall structure of our model. If you are new to this course, click the link below to access to the full playlist so you can start from the beginning. Now, let's get started. Alright, I'm going to start designing the headlights. So first, I'm adding a cube and scaling it down to make it smaller. Then I'll scale it up on the X to stretch it horizontally. I'll switch to top view and move this somewhere around here. Now I'll scale it down on the Y to make it thinner. Once that's done, I'll apply scale and switch to edge mode. Let's grab these two edges and also these two. Then run a small bevel. Now I'll select the front face and apply a nice bevel to smooth out the corners. Next, let's add a loop cut here. Then select the space loop and extrude it along the normal. It's already starting to take shape. Now I'll apply shade auto smooth and switch to face mode. Let's grab this back face, duplicate it and move it backward. Then I'll move it slightly up and extrude it outward. Next, select the top face, duplicate it and move it upward, and then extrude it down like this. Now, select this back face, move it slightly backward and do the same for this face here. Switching to edge mode, I'm select this edge and run a chamfer. Then, select all the side edges and run a bevel for a smooth curvature. Now I'll pick the top face and chamfer it slightly as well. Alright, let's start at some details. I'm going to draw a thin rectangle over the side, then extrude it outward. Next, I'll enable the array modifier, give it some nice spacing and cut it through. Now, let's connect the spot to our tank. For that, I'm adding a plane and switching to vertex mode. Then merge it at the center. Next, I'll start extruding this vertex, one on X and another on Y. Now I'll move this vertex up, then switch to top view, move it here and extrude it towards the model. Once that's done, I select all the vertices, run a vertex bevel and increase the segments for a smoother result. Now, convert this line into a curve and then increase the depth under the curve property. Apply shade smooth. And now, convert this pipe to a mesh. Going into edge mode, I'll add a loop cut somewhere around here and give it a small bevel. Then, extrude it along the normal to give some form. To fix the bad shading, I'll manually mark few edge loops as sharp. Now, select both objects and mirror them over to the other side. The connection looks a bit amateur, so let's improve it. I'll place the cursor here and add a cube. I'll scale it down, give it a slight rotation, then scale it up just a bit and move it back. Also, let's move it a little to the right. Now, switch to face mode. I select the bottom face, insert it and extrude it out. Next, switch to edge mode. Select this loop edge and run a smooth bevel. Then select this top face, rotate it slightly on the X and chamfer it. Finally, I'll apply shade auto smooth again. Then move the whole part slightly to the right so the shape blends better and doesn't look separated. Maybe not too much. Let's actually go to the face mode, select these faces and move them a bit to the right. Alright, now let's start adding some detail. I'm going to add a cylinder, scale it down and rotate it on the X by 90. Then let's make it even smaller and then push it slightly upward. Next, I'll add an array modifier. Set the expector to 0 and adjust the Y value until we get some nice spacing between each cylinder. Now set the count to 3. Maybe tweak the value a little. There we go. Once you're happy with it, apply the scale and switch to face mode. Select this face and run a chamfer. Now apply shadow smooth and mirror the changes to the other side. That already looks more detailed. At the front, there is some extra spacing. So we could add something like electrical components or something. So for that, I'll add another cylinder, make it a bit smaller, push it up slightly, and then apply shade out of smooth. Now, I'm just thinking about what kind of a shape to create, so let's go with a flow. I'm moving this up a bit, scale it down even further, then apply the scale and switch to face mode. Let's select the both faces and give them nice chamfer. Now grab these faces again, insert them slightly and extrude along normal. Next, I'll add a loop cut here, bevel it and extrude it again. Just a subtle extrusion. Now select this face, chamfer it, then select one more face, insert and extrude again. We'll repeat the same steps. Extrude it outward to create something like a thin rod. That looks quite basic for now, so let's refine it further. I'll select the top face, move it slightly downward and chamfer this one as well. Then insert and extrude again. I'll add a loop cut, slide it upward, give it some small bevel and extrude it inside. Then insert one more and extrude it outward. Now let's place the object to the left side. It seems like the pipe is colliding with it, so let's move slightly aside. Now we'll add a array modifier to the speed. Set the X value to around 1.5 and count to 4. That's kinda look like an energy supplier. Next, we'll add some cables connecting to each face. For that, I'll add a plane, then merge it at the center. Now, start extruding the vertex to form a cable shape. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. We can adjust the position later. Just move the final vertex towards the large hole. To smooth things out, run a vertex bevel. And then convert this into a curve. Now increase the curve depth to fill the space. Apply the shade smooth for a clean result. And then mirror it. Next, we need to complete to the other two sides. So, I'll add one more plane, convert this into a single vertex and start extruding it. Just shape the cable however you want. Then bevel the vertex, convert this into a curve and give it some thickness. Once that's done, you can mirror it to the other side. It looks slightly misplaced, so I'll move this a bit to the left to get a better alignment. Right now the cable doesn't have a perfect bend, so I'll enable proportional editing and start adjusting the vertex. Just select any vertex and move it up, down, left or right to create some natural flow. You can adjust the proportional radius to refine it further. Once you're done, it looks better, but still a little blocky. So, let's add a subdivision modifier to make it ultra smooth. Finally, we'll do the same for the other cables as well. Alright, now it looks like the electrical component doesn't have a proper connection, so let's create a connection board for it. I'm going to add a cube, scale it down, and then extend its size on X So fill the space between all four models. Now position it right at the center, then move it slightly downward to sit just below the cables. I feel like the cables need a bit of tweaking, so I'll quickly adjust the vertices to form a more natural and smooth curve. Alright, now let's define this board. First, apply the scale and switch to face mode. Select this front face or maybe even the top edge and run a small chamfer to smooth the transition. Next, I'll add a loop guide, slide it slightly to the left, then level the loop. Now select the spaces and extrude them along the normals. Something very minimal. Next, grab these two edge loops and run a small chamfer for a crisp loop. I'll add one more loop cut here, give it some bevel and extrude it inside to add more depth. Then select these both edges and run a chamfer again to get those nice highlights at the corner. Once that's done, mirror the changes over to the other side to keep everything symmetrical. Now go back to face mode, select this main face, insert it slightly and extrude it inward to create a panel-like indentation. To make it look more detailed, I'm going to use box cutter. So let's draw a thin rectangle on the side, extrude it inward and already cut, just multiple times to fill the entire lines. Once you are done, apply the cut. Alright, so we've constructed a pretty decent front section, but the top area still feels a bit too simple. So let's do something about that. I'm going to start by adding a cylinder and move it somewhere around here. Let's scale it down, position it a bit higher and then scale it along the Z to make it flatter. Now apply the shade smooth and also apply the scale. Next, switch to face mode. Select top face and run a chamfer. Add a loop cut, slide it upward and then select the bottom face loop, extrude it out just like this. Create something like a nice shape definition. Now switch to top view and let's draw a circle right at the center. Make it small, then press V twice to activate radial array. Give it some nice spacing. Once you're happy with it, freeze the operation and press E to extrude. That's a nice little video. You could even add a screws to this holes later if needed. Next, I'm going to select a few faces right here, insert them and extrude them outward slightly to give some extra surface definition. Now switch to X-ray mode, select all these bottom faces and extrude them out. Back to face mode. Select this face, insert it and extrude it downward. Then scale it down, lift it up slightly and mark these edges as sharp. Now we'll multiply the cylinder, scale it down and adjust the position so it fits better. Alright, now let's add a few more details to the top. I'm going to bring in a cube and scale it down. Now move this slightly to the left, scale it down on the Z and lift it up. Before we modifying it, let's apply scale. Switch to edge mode, select this back edge, then perform a small chamfer. Now select all the sides and run a bevel for smoother corners. Back in face mode, select the top face and give it a chamfer as well. It still looks like a bit plain for now, but that's fine. We'll add some details to polish it up. Let's draw a rectangle cut over the side using box cutter, extrude it deeper around the edges and then enable solidify to give some thickness and cut it. Next, let's start adding another rectangle cut, but this time a thin vertical one. Extrude it down bevel the edges, and array the cutter along the surface. That gives it a vent-like look, adding both realism and balancing the top section. Now let's take a look at the electroplated component. I'm going to start by adding a cylinder, scale it down, rotate it 90 degrees on the X. Let's make it even smaller, bring it down a little, and then move it down. Now switch to top view, move it aside, and rotate this on the Z to align with the shape. Once that's done, apply Shade Auto Smooth for a cleaner result. Next, go to face mode. Select this front face and run a chamfer. Then add a loop cut here, slide it forward and bevel that edge. Just about this much. And then extrude it out. Now let's mirror it to the other side. To attach it to the other two objects, I'm simply going to duplicate this piece and place it accordingly. After that, reset the rotation, rotate it 90 degrees on the X, and move it slightly to the left. It's already started to looking pretty stunning, so I keep repeating the details across the front section. Now let's start refining the front. I'm going to draw a small circle on the side using box cutter, then extrude the cut and hit enter. Once that's done, Smart Apply and switch to Edge mode. Let's isolate this piece, select the bottom edge loop and fill the faces. Now switch to face the leg, insert it slightly and extrude it out. Finish it off with a chamfer for a smooth highlight. Next, I'm going to select this bottom piece, switch to top view and select the cutter type to box. Let's draw a rectangle right at the middle and cut it. Then Smart Apply, go to Edge mode, select this edge and chamfer it. Do the same for the back edge as well. Now I can see the side parts aren't properly connected to the main body, so first I'll select this connector, lift it up slightly and then duplicate it. Hold it higher. Let's mirror it on the global Z and move it slightly down for a balance look. Now duplicate this one more, bring it forward and mirror it on the global Y. Finally, pull it forward a bit to complete the connection. Now let's complete the wheel mechanism. As we already built the main structure,
we still have a few wheels left to connect.
So I'm going to duplicate this plate and move it upward. Then rotate it on the edge just like this and bring it forward. Now let's scale it down on the local Z, the Y axis to adjust the proportions. Once done, position it properly. We can push it slightly back, make it thinner and move it forward again to balance the design. Now let's start refining it. First, I'm applying scale and switch to edge mode. Select this both edges and run a full bevel, then merge by distance to clean it up. Next, select the cylinder, duplicate it and position it right here. Get it along the X, bring it a little forward and that's it. The wheel structure is now completed. We've made a great progress on the front, but the back, it still looks a bit empty. So let's add some detail. I'm going to start by adding a cylinder and bring it to the center. Rotate it 90 degrees on the X, make it smaller and maybe scale it up slightly to fit the proportion. Next, I'm applying Auto Smooth and switch to face mode. Let's run a small chamfer on this edge to soften it. Now I'm adding a loop cut right here, slide it towards the back. Then select a few faces on the side and extrude them out once. And then one more extrusion. Select these two faces and extrude again to build the structure. Let's mirror the changes to the other side. Right now it looks like a sharp and blocky, so let's clean it up. Switch to edge mode, select these two main edges and also select all the surrounding edges. Then run a nice bevel to smooth it out. Next, select the face and make a medium insert. Then extrude it out a little, very small extrusion, and chamfer the face for smoother highlight. Now insert the face again and extrude it outward slightly to add another layer of depth. Once that's done, I'm going to duplicate this blade and let me actually turn off the mirror modifier. Now, reset the rotation, rotate it 90 on the X and fit the blade inside the cylindrical shape. Position them properly at the center and push them slightly inside. Now duplicate the blade one more and move it back to create another layer. The edges still looks a bit sharp, so let's finish it by chamfering those edges for a clean polished look. Next, let's add something like an armor shield to give this area a more reinforced look. So, first I'm going to isolate this model and switch to top view. Now let's enable box cutter and start drawing a custom shape using Ngon tool. I'm just echoing the main body silhouette to keep it consistent, and once you've done that, I run a bevel on this shape and press X to slice it. You might notice a slight overlap happening here. To fix it, you just simply scale this piece up just like that. That should clean it up nicely. Next, near the tank cap, I want to add something like a small pipe or a rod for extra mechanical detail. So I'm adding a plane, merge all the vertices at the center, then grab this vertex and start extruding. First upward, then forward, and finally down to form a curved rod shape. Now select all the vertices and perform a vertex bevel, then convert this mesh into a curve and increase the depth value to give it some thickness. We could actually make it a bit thinner and then apply shade smooth to finish it off. Next, I'm going to add something like a gas cylinder to the tank, just to make the setup looks more functional. So, to model that, I'll start by adding a new cylinder, peel it down, flip it upside down, reduce the overall size, and position it closer to the tank. I'll slightly increase the size along the Y, then apply scale and switch to face mode. Now I'll add a nice bevel on the both end faces, followed by a loop cut at the center. Bevel the cut and then extrude along normal to give it some thickness. Next, scale it down slightly on the Y and add one more loop cut, slide it towards the front and bevel it just a bit. Now select this front face, I duplicate and separate this part. Put slightly away, then go to face mode, select all these edges and extrude on the X. Then grab the bottom edge and also extrude it. Now, I'll add a few more loop cuts on this side for better control. And with proportional editing turned on, I'll move this middle edge a bit to the top. And finally, adjust a few more edges manually to give it some natural organic curve. And that completes our gas cylinder shape. Right now, the piece is so fragile, so I'm going to add a solidify modifier to it. The default thickness is fine, so we leave it as it is. But let's move to this piece, slightly to the right, just like that. Now duplicate it and copy to the back. From the front view, you can see it's still a bit floating in the air. Go into edge mode, select this edge and bring it down. We'll do the same adjustment for the other one as well. Let's also grab this edge and move it down just a little, so we get a nice smooth curvature across the surface. Next, I'm going to select this top piece and run a rectangle cut over this area. Let's deepen the cut, round the edges, and then confirm the cut. Now we could place the cylindrical shape to the left side as well. So, from the top view, duplicate the cylinder and move it somewhere around here. Give it a slight rotation on the Z, lift it up a bit, and then set the 3D cursor to this object origin. Now add a plane, merge it into a single vertex, and start extruding. Form something like a cable that connects to this opening. Make sure the end of the cable sits nicely inside the rectangle slot. Once that's done, on a vertex bevel and convert this into a curve. Increase the thickness a little, just enough to make it look solid. That should add a nice bit of detail to the top. Let's lift it up slightly higher and give it some rotation on the X just to make the placement feel more natural and integrated. Next up, I'm going to add some extra detail. So let's start adding a cylinder, scale it down really small and reduce the height. Now rotate it and align with the surrounding shape. Once that's done, apply shade smooth and switch to face mode. Let's extrude the front face. Next, I'm going to add a cube right here, scale it down nice and small, then rotate it to match the same angle as the cylinder. Let's extend the length, make it a bit wider, then scale it on the Y to stretch it just a little more. Now rotate it slightly on the Z and tweak the both position and rotation until it sits in the perfect alignment. Alright, now let's start building out the shape. Using the N-gon cutter, I'm going to draw a line here, cut it across, fill the space and confirm the cut. Next, let's move to the other side and start cutting again. This time, we make the similar shape and cut it. Now we are going to draw a similar shape inside. Round off the edge and make the cut. Let's multiply and go to edge mode. Grab all the surrounding edges and run a clean bevel. Next, select the cylinder and chamfer the front face. Then insert the face slightly and extrude it inward to add some depth. Once everything looks good, we mirror the both object to the other side. Now I feel like the structure looks a bit too thick, so let's make it thinner and bring it up slightly for a more balanced look. Now here, I'm just adding a few cylinders to make something interesting, but honestly, it looks a bit amateur and distracting. So I wouldn't really recommend doing this. The smarter way to add bolts or screws is by using kit base or fluent add-on. That method gives you much more realistic and detailed result. If you prefer, you can skip this step entirely. It's not necessary for your final design. Now, I notice a small issue with the armor shield. It's slightly overlapping with the geometry. So, let's extend its size on the X just a little to fix that. Next, on the bottom connector, I'm going to smart apply and go to edge mode. Let me activate this piece, switch to face mode, select this inside face and insert it slightly. Then extrude it out and run a small chamfer along the face. That should give it a cleaner and more refined look. Alright, that's it. We've officially finished designing the tank model. In upcoming parts, I'll show you how to add materials, surface imperfection, and final touch to make a design visually appealing and portfolio ready piece. So make sure to turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next part. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next week.